Disclaimer. This is meant for a more mature audience, so if you're a wee little babby or you're sensitive to stuff, I suggest not watching this. A brief thank you
That's like,
goes out to Discord and Roll20 for allowing us to, in this current time, be able to play Dungeons and Dragons online during the quarantine, as well as a thank you to Wizards of Coast for making Dungeons and Dragons. And now, on to the main scene.
the first line was like, "Yeah, guys, we're edgy, so go away."
Alrighty. So, welcome to Dungeons, Dragons, Dudes at a Table. Although, metaphorically
table.
at a
No
table. Not right now, the
table.
coronavirus pandemic. Alrighty. A little bit of a sip. Okay. So, I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So, I'm Alex. I'm the one behind this whole podcast thing. So this is initially a project for my college course, Virtual Communications, but hopefully it might become something more than that. And I guess, on the display, my right is Logan. To the bottom right, down there, we have Trevor. And then below me, we have Vass. This is a group of friends which I've brought together today to mainly just talk about some Dungeons and Dragons topics. Group that I've been playing with for a couple years now, and frankly, it's been a pretty good show.
A year.
About
Get
a
ahead
year?
of
A year and a half. A year and a half.
Oh,
Getting
okay,
close
year
to
and a
2
half.
years.
Not
So,
a couple of years, though. Not yet. Not yet.
where do we start? Oh boy.
Still got to live through this before you get a year, 2 years.
Yeah, that's, I guess, a big topic right now, the whole deal with coronavirus. So, I guess with the whole pandemic and the quarantine going on right now, a lot of people have been stuck in isolation. And funny enough, with that, we've seen a really big surge of players that actually have been getting into Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, all these tabletop RPGs. And I find it kind of funny in that sense because it's ironic, but also good for the business that the world's kind of going to hell.
It's good for
It's
some.
good for some. Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
for some.
It's good for some.
As far as I'm aware, I
trademark
don't
it.
think any new competitive chess has opened up, despite being a tabletop. So,
uh, but yeah, I've kind of noticed there's been the recent explosion of people that have been interested in tabletop RPGs lately. So I find that kind of interesting, and Roll20, as of recent, has been doing a lot of advertisements and announcements and whatnot. So they've been giving away the free book that was made by Critical Role, I believe, to, I guess, kind of introduce people, as well as a lot of free resources and also promotion from Wizards of the Coast on their end to almost promote their game in a way to do it online. So I think it's really good for the popularity lately. What do you guys think about this whole deal right now, I guess?
Well, I didn't know they were even handing out these books for free.
I got a couple emails a while back in their subscription newsletter or whatever from Roll20. They had a deal with Wizards of the Coast and Critical Role because Matt Mercer and his gang of guys there made a D&D book, and I believe there was a free public release at the time for people that are looking to get into it because, I mean, with everyone stuck in isolation, people need something to do, so.
Completely fair.
oh,
Before we
I got a fair bit to say about Critical Role, but yeah, you're saying? Sorry, Logan?
before we get further into it, should we explain what these things are about?
Fair point. So, Dungeons and Dragons has been around for longer than we've been around, but it started a long time ago with just a bunch of guys thinking up a sort of fantasy setting and some way to roleplay it out, a game to play on tabletop. And a lot of it's really just simplified down to bare bones. It's just rolling dice, math, and storytelling. But if you go past that, it really becomes something special, I guess, because there's these worlds that you can build in any sort of setting, whether it be sci-fi, fantasy, maybe even something closer to real life, and there's worlds you can build as well as characters and people, and it's like almost making a story that you can play. So I believe the current edition's 5th edition, with the most recent book being Eberron, the Last War or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's always
Eberron.
kind of getting updates, but the kind of basis behind it is you have a DM, which is known as a dungeon master. They're kind of the person responsible for making the world as well as kind of running the game. So, for example, in the game that I'm a part of, Vasily is the DM for that one, and I'd like to say he's doing a pretty good job. So, he created this sort of story of this wasteland, this magical wasteland, and the world that's kind of affected by it, and there's a couple continents around the area that have been adversely affected by the wasteland, or a couple organizations that are, I guess, directly involved. And as the game has kind of grown, and the longer we've played it, not only have we, I guess, grown as players, but also writers in a sense. So being able to develop a story as well as just becoming a better DM and learning how to, I guess, make a flow in Vass's case. But in our case, like as players, we have learning how to build a character as well as become a character. So in that sense, it's a lot of acting, and it's a lot more, I guess, goofy than it sounds, but it's pretty simple. It's a lot of fun and allows you kind of explore the characters that you always kind of wanted to, I guess, explore or create. Something that you're able to make and just have fun with, and I think that's what I enjoy D&D about the most. So, I mean, I think one of my favorite characters was actually Tarek, funny enough, the half-orc barbarian I was
Way to
playing.
toot your own horn. Way to
Yeah.
toot your own horn.
No,
The
seriously.
most recent one.
Most recent.
Who knows?
But yeah,
Second most.
I
recent.
actually think Tarek was one of my more favorite characters that I've played out of the other ones.
I gotta admit though, with the whole pandemic going on, despite Discord trying their best to facilitate calls, I gotta admit the connection there that Discord has is a bit on the underwhelming side. So
Yeah.
sorry in advance if
I mean, that's just. That's
I'm
just
sorry in
today.
advance if I have to ask you to repeat things.
Yeah.
Or I think it's just
Like-
internet in general.
Internet
Well,
is
I
struggling
suppose.
with everyone at home and whatnot, as well as Discord servers, so...
Wait, but why? I'm actually curious. Why Tarek?
I guess that's a good question. It's one of the characters that I actually put the most involvement and effort towards. I mean, you know,
I mean,
you
you
guys
had the
know about the
journal.
journal, yeah.
Yeah.
I opened up a Google Doc and I just kind of started writing. And I was like, you know what? I want to actually invest in this character. And I had a
And?
lot of fun doing it, although, I mean, unfortunately,
but, like-
it's gone, but,
You don't need to write it down to like invest per se. But I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
The kind of-
there was a lot of work.
what I was going for was I wanted to make it kind of special, I guess. This is one of the main, like, first real characters where I was learning and I was actually getting to have fun with it because, I mean, first character project was chaotic good. Long story
Well, we can
go
short,
down
I
there.
wasn't
We can
very
go down
into
there.
it.
Look, fireballing innocence is not a good way to get into heaven. Let's.
Okay, in my defense, it was a fucking murder tourney, and okay, we're gonna move past.
To be
Yeah, we're-
fair, we were
we're-
all encouraging him to do that, so
We could spend.
we were
could
not.
spend
We were
hours
not.
on here.
He totally did that on his own.
no, I
Well,
totally,
yeah,
I was
well-
totally the background.
Well,
It was
Like-
a really big learning process though for me with, I guess, jumping from Kaya to Tarek.
Dear diary, today, now that I am not able to fireball anyone, I will not fireball anyone.
Okay.
Okay,
Trevor,
your
what were you
chaotic
saying
tendencies
earlier?
your chaotic tendencies didn't change. You just lost the ability to cast magic, and that's it.
I mean, I at least shifted the alignment to chaotic neutral to better.
But do I need-
instead of mana, you use protein now.
but do I need to remind you about the torch?
Okay, I'll admit, that was a little bit overkill, but it also ended up being an opportunity for character growth.
Maybe. Yeah.
Funny enough, like, I not only as a person felt bad about that, but also it gave me a chance in game, I guess, to kind of develop the character and realize, maybe trying not to cauterize someone's tongue with a torch is a bad idea.
Okay.
Like,
In that guy's defense, maybe you shouldn't have cut it out in the first place. Look, I get it. You were trying to stop him from
spellcasters,
casting
man.
magic by issue of voice, but you could have gagged him. You could have placed
Me
hand
big ooga
over
booga,
mouth.
no thank good.
Exploring
And-
Alex's chaotic tendencies.
That was also another reason why I
You
like
know,
Tarek
they always
so
say
much.
that
Low-end
drama-
characters are fun as fuck. Like,
I've heard the saying drama is a window to the soul, and you gotta clean your window.
fucking hell. But yeah, I just really enjoyed playing Tarek because, believe it or not, low-end characters are fun as hell. You know this especially, but I honestly
What is hell? I'm sorry.
low-end characters are fun as hell. Like,
Oh, well,
you know
okay.
this.
But there's different
Thundercat.
ways, like
There's
depending on
a
how
lot of
you-
ways, yeah.
There's different ways, like depending on how you properly play a character. You can have low intelligence be someone who barely managed to graduate kindergarten with a 51%. But then there's low intelligence, as in the guy who's, he knows how to do a lot of things. Like he
Like
knows how
street
to,
smarts.
he knows how to like drive a truck. He knows how to, garden, and he's probably a great guy. But like, you try to teach him like
Arithmetic
grade
or
6
something.
math, and like he just planks.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of the most fun about in characters, like low-end characters. There's so much flexibility with what you can do with it because, I mean, as human beings in itself, intelligence isn't that hard to acquire and isn't that hard, I guess, to manifest in a character because every guy, I guess, can be some sort of know-it-all, but I guess if we look in the sort of aspect of like the great intelligent wizard or whatever, the level of knowledge that he has, I mean, he may not be wise in the sense that he's very cloistered, but he knows so much about magic that he would be considered a genius in his field. But I guess it kind of comes to the sense of your character may be really smart, but it depends on what it's applied to, I guess. So, I mean, personally, I actually enjoy playing low-end characters because it always ends up
it is
fun.
It's simpler.
It is also simpler because you feel less pressure, I guess, in that sense to be
It is
smart.
difficult though playing high-end characters.
High-end characters
because
are hard.
It's easy to dumb yourself down
It's
to
hard
the
to
point
smarten
of where
yourself
it's
up.
kind of dramatic. But it's impossible to smarten yourself up without asking the DM for help every 3 minutes, and asking me for help every 3 minutes gets very annoying.
Yeah,
I know
true.
this very well. First time
Yeah.
playing high-end character, been asking questions non-stop.
Oh, now I have to answer them.
I mean,
Well,
I'm also a
I don't
high-end
want-
character, but
But I mean,
Well,
some questions
trying
are
to do it in
unavoidable
my
at the
own
same
way.
time.
some questions are unavoidable, but there has to be kind
Yeah.
of an upper limit.
Yeah,
But I
kind of
suppose
like-
that really depends on how you play. Like
how
if
much do
necessary.
you really
Right.
need in help where it becomes like, are you just trying to edge off the fucking DM? Or are you just genuinely confused and you need guidance? And there's kind of the sort of aspect where you gotta figure out, what can I do to do this myself instead of having to constantly ask the DM?
Well,
Well-
generally speaking, what I have heard other people talk about in works, in the event that there is a high intelligence kind of character, the DM would sometimes have some kind of encyclopedia or something prepared
Oh.
beforehand that would be acceptable to people who maybe are a bit more learned, who tend to visit the library more than the gym.
Mm.
And this encyclopedia basically would be given to the player as a reference guide so that they don't have to ask the DM for sort of pseudo simple questions that they might be able to answer themselves. Besides, it kind of in a sense, almost stimulates a sort of method acting because you yourself have to look at the encyclopedia as your character.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It's definitely a lot of work on the DM's
It's-
part,
it's
and
a
not
lot of
DMs
work,
do this. But I have
but
heard,
it plays out
especially
well.
in bigger parties,
Yeah.
with multiple like wizards and stuff, for example, multiple high
Yeah.
intelligence characters, it works pretty well. But if you guys want
Yeah.
one of those, you keep dreaming. I'm not doing
Well, what about the
lazy DM?
it. No, I'm not lazy.
I
I'm
know. I'm just goofing.
practical with my time.
what about the
I guess.
what were they called? The runes that you kind of developed, the
Oh,
numbered.
Yeah, the rune words.
So- That's an interesting kind of topic because the way I have the runes structured, the magical runes,
Right.
is that I have a big list, well, not a big, an expanding list of various magical effects. Like 1 equals fire, 2 equals ice, 3 equals, I don't know, thunder or something.
kind of
and
like element list.
If I'm feeling generous enough and if I feel it kind of applies, I will, if you guys know the corresponding runes, I'll tell them that you recognize these symbols. Sort of like, for example, if you know, a few words in French, but you can't speak French, then you'll be able to recognize those words. Like,
Oh,
for example, you might
yeah.
know what, like, I don't know, oiseau is in French, which is bird, but like place that anywhere else in a sentence, you won't know what the sentence means. But you'll know it has something to do with birds.
Yeah, so.
So that's why I have these magical runes. Like if you have, for example, numbers 1 through 14,
Right,
and
but
you
I
know
think I'm-
those.
Yeah.
I'm
But,
saying like
Mhm.
for more like I don't know, because I would like to know what all the runes that I currently know
Oh.
are about.
Well, yeah,
because
and
I've got like
I
I've got
would-
like
you've got
13
some, yeah, I know.
to something.
And
Kind
I
of like
would
the
give
specific meaning, I guess.
I would give you
Yeah.
access to the document.
I know,
But
I know.
there's too much.
However, I'd
I
have
know.
to like redact like half of it.
Trevor,
Yeah.
maybe you can just copy the specific numbers. Same with you, Vass. Like, copy the specific numbers, what it might mean, and then just copy it over to his player
Well,
sheet.
no,
there.
I mean,
You
yeah,
could. I mean,
it's a factor
yeah.
of laziness. Then again, like a lot of the stuff is on my end. It's
Yeah,
just-
true.
I don't feel like I use the runes enough to warrant me actually seriously investing into them. But when
True.
they happen, they happen. That's
Yeah.
why I say that they're magical runes. Yeah. Trevor tells me and it's like, hey, Vess, I got like 1 through 13 and what, like a 24, and I know those. And
Yeah.
It's like, all right. And I double check to make sure that, generally speaking, I don't have the runes written down about the thing beforehand because I know what it does. So if it summons a lightning storm, then I'll kind of piece together based on what Trevor has in his
kind of
known
like what he can
runes.
understand.
I'll throw together a few words that sort of relatively sort of associate themselves with what happens.
Ah, yeah. Also, I guess backtracking a little bit, when you were saying something about the encyclopedia, I guess in a sense that could also apply to wisdom because I guess a lot of the religious characters, kind of like the cleric, the paladin, whatnot, and all the sort of religious pantheons and whatnot could also be an encyclopedia of its own, and amongst like the high wisdom and what it plays into that,
Well-
or just even world smarts.
In D&D, wisdom is not quite the same as intelligence. High wisdom,
Yeah.
you could have a fighter with really high wisdom, but he doesn't know what 3 plus 3 is. However, he knows like where to find the answer to 3 plus 3, who
Yeah.
can help him with it, and if he needs to, who he has to poison and how to poison the guy to make sure 3 plus 3 is correctly answered. However, like it's less wisdom is less of something you can learn from an encyclopedia,
It's more
so much
like
as it is
acquired
an
knowledge,
application
I guess.
of direct common sense.
Yeah.
Like if
we're missing quite a bit
intelligence
of that.
if intelligence is knowing how to make the poison, wisdom is knowing where to find the things to make the poison
or where to use it.
or where to
You
use
may
it.
not know what the poison does, but you know it works well and you know how to make it.
No,
That's intelligence.
I
Yeah,
guess,
that's
in a
intelligence.
sense.
Yeah.
You may not know what the poison does, but you know that it works, and you know where to make it work the hardest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's
Yeah.
always something I've kind of, I guess, found interesting is, I guess, the aspect of, like, the magical languages that you brought up, as well as just the balancing between int characters and Oh, actually, that's another topic we might want to bring up. A lot of the classes in the game, they're kind of broken up into, I guess, categories. So, I guess the best way to explain it is you have your more physical characters like fighter, barbarian, paladin. Although paladin's interesting
Paladin's
blend
its
between
own.
magic and fighting, but it's more of a
Yeah.
physical base. But we have stuff like we have the ranger, we have the rogue, we have the barbarian, the fighter, and then there's
Yeah,
more
I
magical
don't quite
ones.
understand. I don't quite understand why you're putting ranger and rogue together, though.
They're both dexterity based,
They're-
aren't they?
It's more
Except
like
ranger
physical
actually is
and
wisdom.
magic.
It's
Ranger has
wisdom.
spell casting based on wisdom. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
but
that's
they
true.
also have the physical aspects, so they're the weird in-between line. And then you also have
Yeah.
spell casting aspects, like with the ranger, you have wisdom casting. You have some subclasses, like you can be a magical knight, so magic fighter, magic rogue. There's also druid,
Yeah.
warlock, sorcerer, etc.
Then you start walking the fine line of being, for example, a fighter who classes into the magic fighter,
Oh,
or you
yeah.
could be a wizard who classes into the fighter wizard.
Oh
which
yeah,
is on
the
paper
blade
it's
singer.
the same thing, but
Essentially the same thing, but different applications.
even war mage, I think.
Oh yeah, war mage is kind of like
Wait, do they all have the same
beefier one.
features, or is
Uh,
that
They
like the?
don't, but they're
No,
on
it-
paper
it's
they're
all kind
basically
of
the same thing.
On paper, the
Oh,
same
okay.
thing, but war mage is kind of like really offensive defensive magic, like I
Well-
guess a tanky mage in that sense. Blade
One's definitely
singer
better than the
is
other.
a more physical based. Like here, take this for example. You know the hexblade from warlock? That's essentially
of.
warlock as a fighter, and
Yeah.
it's sort of like applying that logic to the other classes where it may all kind of seem the same on paper, but in application it's very, very different. All the classes play different.
Mhm.
Like, I guess the best way to explain it is fighter plays very differently from a wizard. You have your physical fighter and then your magical fighter, and all the intricacies that come in with that, and spellcasters can be a lot harder to play, especially wizard, when you have this big fucking list of just spell after spell after spell after spell. But I guess that's also where some of it shines through with the wizard is I guess the level of choice that you have, whereas with a fighter, you're a lot more limited on your options. It's like, what flavor of Kool-Aid would you like over what sort of fruity drink would you like? You have juice, you have Kool-Aid, you have teas. It's all these sort of different sort of ways to look at what you want out of a character. Like, I remember for the first character that I made, Kay, I was thinking, you know what, I kind of liked Warlock last time when I played it, so let's play a Warlock, but last time I played a Hexblade, so this time I wanted to try more spellcasting, so I went for Pact to the Tome. Yep.
Mhm.
And, after that, I was like, you know what, I've played a lot of spellcaster, I'd like to try something different, because I've played a Druid in the past, way back when. So I decided I'll try and make a barbarian. So I went with Tarek. I made the half-orc barbarian, and I think it was Berserker, yeah, which was the like really offensive base one. So there's always some sort of flavor that you can meet. So whenever you want to make some sort of unique idea, you can either look through all the books that are there and try and find what's already, I guess, made,
But I mean,
or the fun part, you can make your own, but you're going to have to bring that up with your DM. It's a lot of work, and sometimes
it can be fun though. It can be really fun.
sometimes it's a shit ton of fun. You're given like literally every creative liberty you want, but the problem
Right.
is, how do you make it make sense for the universe that you're in, as well as tie into your character, and how do you make it fair? That's probably one of the
mean,
harder things,
yeah,
making it
you
fair.
really-
You can make it
dives
simpler
into-
by just doing like a subclass of a
Yeah,
character
true.
or a
Kind
or
of
an
like
existing
modifying
class.
off of it.
Because already as it stands, like D&D, it's got a lot of diverse classes to begin with anyway.
Yeah, so there's always something that, like, if you like this part of it, you can take that and pull it in, and it's always kind of like mixing and matching for homebrew, like making your own thing, or you can kind of go, I guess, the more preset path. So, like, I went the Berserker Barbarian, you went Path of... Wait, was it Path of the Crown?
Oath of the Crown.
Oath of
Oath
the
of the
Crown.
Crown.
So,
Yes.
you went Oath of the Crown, I went Berserker, and... I mean, there's a million other oaths, like there's the Oath of Redemption, the Oath of
There's
Conquest.
like 5 other oaths.
There's a lot of
It's-
oaths.
There's actually not, there's nothing. Well,
A
yeah.
lot of them kind of meet different archetypes, so you have, like, your really big fighter, you have the more supporty one, you have the tank, so you have your frontline guy that's taking all the damage, the frontline guy that's dealing
Well,
all the damage.
Or you can be an Oathless Paladin, in which case
Oathless
you're basically
Paladin.
a fighter.
Well-
Dude, fighter! Trevor knows that!
Pseudo
Yeah.
fighter at that. Can't
But
do much.
I like how that went down though.
Yeah, it all kind of
You
depends on
know-
your perspective too, I guess. Like,
No, I
But
know
like-
how it went down. It was pretty good how
Yeah.
it went down.
honestly, oh damn, I
I thought
really wish
it
Bennett
made
were here,
sense.
but I really like how Bennett did his Mystic as well as Logan did Disco in combination. Honestly, Disco and Drums was a really cool pair. I honestly, when I
yeah, they were
first
great.
saw them, I was like, "Oh my god, this gonna be fucking good." And then I
think it was-
realized,
I think
"Oh
it
my
was
god,
really,
this is good," but I know I'm gonna hate it.
I think it was a really good like new taste from
It
like
was
the
so
classic,
fresh,
you know,
though.
fighter. I fought my own war before, you know, that sort of
like,
story.
you take every sort of image of the monk, like you take your finely trained Shaolin, you take your roaming martial artist or whatever, throw that all out the fucking window. What Logan did, he made
You get
goddamn
You get this
disco
Elvis
black
Presley
dynamite
knockoff.
mixed with like 80s pop culture references. And then the
Afro
other
and
character
everything.
that was comboed with him was a pacifist Pete Burns with mind powers. That's fucking gold.
Oh yeah, it was whack.
But it was perfect.
It was
Thank you,
it was
guys.
great.
It was
Like,
exactly what we needed.
I gotta give you
It
credit
is
though, where
unfortunate
credit's
that
due.
Disco met his end
By
at the
pressing
hand
a
of a-
murder button.
low intelligence player.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Wow.
But yeah,
Oh,
I
come on.
actually
You're never
genuinely
gonna
have
live
to
that
give
down.
credit for that because, like, I shit you not, Logan, Drums and Disco was one of the coolest character combinations I've ever seen in concept building. Plus, I think you
Now
played
it's
the
just
character
the
really
solo-
well.
Now
Although,
it's just drums.
solo band.
yeah, I personally don't agree with the decision to have press the murder button, but I feel like it also kind of was a
Curiosity
way to go
kills.
out like making a gamble, although there's not much gamble when it
In-
specifically says, bro, this button will fucking kill you. So,
Yeah, you know, like lots of people blame the DM for player
Yeah.
deaths.
oh no,
and
no.
sometimes it's
I mean,
possible. However,
yes,
there's a few things to consider whenever player death happens. First of all, the DM most of the time would have made it obvious or somewhat obvious.
Yeah.
In that
This
case,
time it
the
was
button had a
blatantly
description
obvious.
next to it on a piece of paper. The room was that the button was in was covered in
smeared
skeletons
in
and
blood,
blood,
like,
and the
it
button
was-
said that it will kill you. Do not press.
You know, sometimes it's too obvious. You know, it kind of provokes your curiosity.
But-
there was
No,
no
there's-
curiosity there, bud.
But then when you trigger it, you have no one to blame but yourself.
See,
Or the DM.
I feel like
You
mine
can't
was a
blame
little
me.
bit more vague in my case with
I have
Kea.
diplomatic immunity in this case.
Like with Kea, there was still some science, but I guess I didn't clue on well enough. It was a
Yeah, I
little
tried-
bit vague,
I
but
tried
there
to
was
help.
also yeah.
In my
f-
defense,
I feel if I was
Kea
a little
my
bit
first player
smarter,
death.
I would have
That was a long time
probably
ago
gotten out of
too.
it. Oh yeah, that was
that was a
long
year
time
ago.
Okay, no, well, no, it was less.
Are you
was-
sure?
It was a
about a
long
year
time
ago.
ago, trust me.
I don't know. Tarek didn't have a super long lifespan, I think.
Yeah. I felt
Compared
like that
to
was
Kea.
kind of
Kea
the
was
direction.
longer.
I feel like the way
Well,
Tarek's
also-
end came
well,
about
actually,
though, was kind of how I
Tarek's
wanted
not
Disco-
it.
dead yet.
Disco wasn't long as well
What do you mean
Disco's
Tarek's
wasn't-
not dead yet?
Wait, what do you mean Disco wasn't long?
in terms
Disco
of
was-
lifespan.
Lifespan? Yeah, Disco is pretty short.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, in terms of like,
Compared to your
Nils,
Nils.
Nils lasted a while, but he was just straight up murdered in combat.
Nils-
Like,
Nils,
brother.
Nils was killed by combat, which is one of the deaths that I am legitimately.
Proud.
Yeah, no, honestly, yeah, I'm
Like-
proud of.
the character lasted and
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
that was
it was
stupid.
unfortunate,
I think
but
that was
it was
that
kind
was
of
all
a
on us.
thematic.
That was not
It
all
was
on us.
dramatic as well.
Yeah.
But another thing, I did go away. Like my character did die from combat, but it was also like way too quick. So
Yeah.
Quickly true. Yeah,
I
true.
felt-
sometimes
it-
that's
I
just how
felt
it
you
is.
had a little bit of trouble with Nils trying to figure out what you actually wanted to do or play as, because
Mhm.
I noticed
I was
you were kind of enjoying it, but you were also like, this isn't exactly what I was like buying for, I guess.
Oh yeah, it was my first character. He wasn't as developed.
Yeah, it's
but-
it's always kind of a learning
So-
process.
Like I'm not saying like he was like terribly bad, but
There
like,
was
there-
things
there was
you kind of
definitely
wanted
room
to
to-
change.
hmm
Yeah,
Wow.
I feel
So,
that
like,
actually.
and like that comes with every character, right? Like,
Yeah, true.
I feel like every character I've built, like that I've played and haven't played, there are like flaws, like in terms of like like just writing in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. I feel I've gotten a bit better, like I don't know how marginally, but I feel like as a player I think I've gotten better at building characters and developing a bit, although I still have my innate chaotic tendencies. But I feel
Your building,
like
your building is pretty good.
I feel
Your
like
construction of characters is pretty good, but
Yeah.
your
it's just I need to work a little
Acting-
bit.
out,
I've got a few characters
Could
in
be a little
mind.
bit better.
which
But,
is
you
very,
know.
very interesting considering you've been, dead
Longest
set on
living
keeping
fucking
your
player.
guy alive.
Well, but like, why wouldn't you? Like,
Because the one time I asked you guys to make a backup just in case, due to the area being very dangerous,
yes.
Yeah.
you got really peeved and said that no,
like,
I don't want
why
to.
would you say that though?
Because there's
you
the
guys-
opportunity that it could happen, and you need to have that idea set in place. Because
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's
But
just
in a way,
it just,
kind of brings it
Because most of
Yeah.
the danger came early on.
I guess
So
actually that's another good thing
if
to
we
talk
end the
about.
session there, like if we end it like 30 minutes into it, then we'd be killing like 4.
well, I
Yeah.
can't remember. I can't remember when you warned us that. That was when we were in like some. We
I
were in
think that was
trouble.
in the prison,
Yeah.
In the
like
what?
the dwarven prison. I think that was Demon's Pride, the dwarven prison
Yeah.
when we were all.
Was it?
That's what
Yeah,
I thought it
'cause-
was. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
I
it was
remember that.
dangerous. You guys did almost
Like,
die.
no,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't know when you mentioned this of like have something back up, like for a character. Like I would expect that at more of like a like just in case for the future. Not saying you'll die now, but
Well, now that I got you guys to think about it, you guys do have
Yes.
something for the future.
yes, I know.
That's
But like
actually something.
what I'm
good to
saying
talk
at the
about,
moment
though,
you
now that I
suggested
think
to
about
do
it.
that when we were going to prison. Was
So-
really like
I
Well,
guess
maybe
I don't really
reinforce
want to
reinforce the
sidetrack.
scariness of going to prison.
yeah, no, it did though. It did.
But yeah, I guess
Well-
that's a big topic. Character deaths and how
I mean-
to manage it, as well as understanding
Well,
why your
I
character
haven't
died
died.
and how to
I
avoid
came
that.
close though.
See,
Came really close.
I guess
I can't remember how. Well,
the best way to explain it is in many of the games that you play, both the modules that were made already preset as well as campaigns that you're going to be part of, your character is always, I guess, going to be at some sort of risk at some point or another, and there is the potential to lose that character, and I guess sometimes there can be a bit of emotional pain, and
sucks.
I guess-
it sucks.
it does.
I don't
it
know the
does
feeling,
suck.
but it
like,
sucks.
sometimes people get really, really involved in their characters, and when,
Yeah.
like, I've heard stories about online, these people have played for years, and they're so reluctant to let their character die, but some are also so willing to let their character die in some situations, or they're like almost throwing caution to the winds. And I guess one of the good examples I remember, the All Barbarian Party story of where the character that I guess died at the time, they were sacrificing themselves to essentially bomb an old god out of existence that was like materializing, because
Oh yeah.
it was halfway through and he's like, Godspeed,
I
and
don't-
he sacrifices himself, and it's such a beautiful and cinematic way to let a character end. But there's also times where, similar to my case, or to Disco's case in this sense, where
Looking at you, Disco.
sometimes we make bad decisions, or our character dies in combat, something happens, and maybe sometimes we just don't like the character anymore and we just want to off him. But it feels very
I don't get.
unsatisfying, I guess, for some endings, and
how'd you
some are
not
just
like
upsetting.
a character?
Some people don't get as attached to characters, like,
Yeah.
Yes.
and kind of interesting.
That was me at first, by the way.
Yeah,
A lot
but
of you
I
guys-
guess you've grown to like enjoy it too. Like,
Yeah,
you've grown
no,
A
into
lot, of
honestly.
you, a lot of you guys don't really like when you consider character death. It's always the fault of or it's always like the player like being sad about their character dying. None of you ever
Yeah.
consider the DM, and probably for
Yeah.
good reason
The
too.
DM
but
also gets
do you know
involved
that-
too.
the
like-
DM not only gets involved, but there's always that like sort of that army stereotype that you're always you're weakest until your first kill, kind of deal. And to be fair, I played my campaign very sort of very pacifist until I got first blood, which was Kea, and after that I believe that I was able to successfully, more or less, ramp up the
Confirmed
danger of the
from-
campaign and actually follow up on my threats and not just have them idle and empty. We have the
Oh,
self-destruct suicide button. I would never have pulled that a year ago, like on
The
session 3
automatons
or
as
something.
well. I think those were one of the big major fights in our
Those-
campaign. Those things were dangerous. Like, we knew the danger of the fight that we were getting into.
Well, you
And-
could have avoided them.
You could've,
we still
but you didn't.
had the chance
Right.
to avoid it, but we chose not to. But I guess
We chose
in
the
turn,
harder
we
route.
also lost something out of that.
Yep. But I think
So
leading up to that,
all
we
of
kind of
it-
had the choice
yeah.
there.
all of it's kind of up to the player and the choices they make. Yes, some part of it is an influence of the DM, but it's up to the player what to do with what the DM gives them. And yes,
Yeah.
there
And it's also part
there's
of
a
the
lot of
DM's
stories.
responsibility to
Yeah,
make sure that what they give is fair.
yeah.
Yep.
And that also brings up the horror story of terrible DMs. Like, there's
yeah.
few and
There's
far
there's a
between
lot of
on
horror
the
stories
internet.
of terrible players too. So
I
that
haven't
too.
heard of much of any stories. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean,
oh, there's.
Are there-
I guess I read a
um,
lot of stuff on the internet, and I guess just other players' experiences, but
I mean, it's fair.
it's almost like a symbiotic relationship. You have to give, they have to give for both of you to get something out of it.
I
guess.
wouldn't even call it symbiotic so much as omniparasitic. Both of you leech off of each other.
Both of you leech off each other in a
It's-
cycle of
okay.
Ouroboros.
It's non-consensual symbiosis.
Okay.
That's how
Oh
I put
god.
it, probably.
What for? I don't. Again.
D&D in general, players and DMs.
Oh.
It's a non-consensual symbiosis.
I
Both
thought
parties.
you were
leech
talking
off
about
each
these
other.
these horror stories.
Oh no, horror stories sometimes.
Oh, horror
make you-
stories are like worst case scenarios.
Like
and
I don't understand.
that's where
is
you
it
really
like-
see the
there's-
flaws in people.
There's the classic sort of example where
That
some
guy.
DM is hosting in some game store or something, right? And
Oh,
they get a new
yeah.
player, and it's like that's all fun. And
Oh,
this
that's
guy
really
brings in a
funny.
character sheet where he has a perfect like a textbook recreation of Naruto that he wants to play.
and
With
it
like
also
with like
functions like a god. like,
yeah, it
it's
has
just
power level
broken.
through the roof. Has like the yellow hair, the orange jumpsuit. I don't do a lot
Some
of
Deus Ex
anime.
Machina power that lets them bullshit
Yeah,
their way
like
out of
the-
everything.
the,
Yeah.
the tattoo, the headband, and everything, and he's like level 40 or something. Like, who invited this guy? And he adamantly insists that this is who he wants to play with. And when the DM and the entire party freak out, like, what the hell is this guy doing? He leaves. There's shouting. There's yelling.
yeah.
Sometimes it's a problem of the DM who tries to force the party into sort of these awkward, like tense scenarios where the DM uses a character to hit on a party member as well.
Yeah.
Especially this actually
Ah,
this actually turns very interesting if there are any members of the opposite sex in the party. Like if you're if there's a DM and like some girls or something, some DMs, the more lecherous ones, tend to, for example, use a character as a sort of this facsimile to hit on the female in the party.
Yeah.
There's horror, like they're called horror stories for a reason.
Yep.
I thought it was like more in-game.
No, it's
I mean,
sort of.
There is
The point
also
of the horror
in-game
stories is
horror
that they're
stories.
like meta.
Yes.
Mainly,
okay.
a lot of them are caused by faulted people, and
Well, yeah, there's no fault in the game.
yeah, I guess
Like the game rules are fine,
Yeah.
and the DM has the power to overrule anything. That's literally in the game rules.
All
It
the
says
power
that
to
the
the
DM has
DM.
everything.
yeah, like
Every
yeah.
right to
they're the ones that
do
are kind of
whatever.
creating this world and leading it along. It's
No,
up to them.
I think it's like
to make it
like
good.
the fourth or fifth sentence, or like it's like in the opening paragraph.
Yeah,
of,
like
I
all
think
these rules are not
The DM
definite.
guide. It's like that. The rules are not definite, and like you as a DM are free to change any of
Make
them.
the world
like,
that
at your
you
leisure.
want.
I
because-
see.
After all, Gary Gygax and company intended, like the entire Wizards of the Coast guys, they intended D&D to be just a sort of this open source platform to help facilitate this what essentially amounts to adults playing an advanced game of pretend.
Essentially, yeah. and It's made
Mathematical.
for people to have fun. Yeah, math. But
It's
It all
basically just
kinda
a
comes down
reenactment
to-
of pretend from when you were 4 years old.
yeah,
I
it's
brought that
literally
all the way
just.
up to grade 7.
It's literally made for people to have fun and kind of, I guess, especially in these situations, get away from the shitty world that they're a part of and try to explore a new one, or just
I am really glad.
be able to
I'm really
have
glad.
fun.
I am glad that sort of well, it's not that COVID hit, but that other.
Oh, shoot.
Where did he go?
Uh,
Having connection
oh no,
troubles
the
all the way
display's all falling apart! Ah, shit! Oh no!
Don't
Oh,
worry, he's back. He's back. He's back.
oh, he's back! I'll just get a picture of how this looked. Oh shit! Oh no, it didn't. Ah,
That wasn't so bad.
no, it was. It was like really janky. It'll show up in the footage, but
Oh, okay. But one of the things, as I was saying,
technical
sorry, I was
difficulty.
gone.
yeah, where was I?
It was. You were
What
going
happened
along
there? I don't know
the
what
lines of. Oh shit.
On the lines of what? I am sorry.
It was along the lines of the coronavirus and like how people
Yes.
get the. Yeah.
So since we use Roll20 as our platform, it's entirely online. So
Yeah.
actually, as far as Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop, we got hit the least. In fact, in a sense, coronavirus was a positive thing for us because it freed up time and technically lets us do sessions on a more consistent schedule. Doesn't help that unfortunately exams are coming
Yeah.
and going right now, so that
Yep.
kind of throws my previous statement out the window. But
But we got the
after
next
all
For
one.
last
that
week,
said
we had
and
last week.
Yeah.
we did have last week, yeah, I suppose. But after all
So-
that's said and done, then we can sort of chill more. And since it's D&D is more than just D&D; it's chilling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also-
kind
That's
Probably
another
first and
reason why I
foremost, it's
really
chilling.
like Roll20 though, and just the Discord, Roll20, all of that combined, because I wouldn't be able to do this shit otherwise. You guys are
Yeah.
all the way out
Like
there.
everyone in our group except for you lives in
Ottawa. Yeah.
So
So
Yeah.
it gives us the
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah.
It gives us the opportunity to be able to get together and be able to do something regardless of distance and still have fun with it. And I guess that's kind of the beauty of it, is we all just get to hang out, have fun, and enjoy ourselves. And that's also, I guess, a lot of recurring topics for people lately, is just being able to have someone to hang out with. And that's also been a positive influence on me for a really long time, because there's some days where I can barely even bring myself out of bed. I feel like, what's even the point? So
Bro, that's
there's
me
times
every
where
day.
my
I'm like
university,
really deep in darker thoughts, and that ping pops. I'm gonna like, I have something to look forward to, something that makes me happy. So
Ding.
it's
my
it genuinely
university did say
did help.
So
Huh.
don't you have to social distance, but don't social isolate.
Yeah.
Very important.
And I guess that's also something that's really important too, is being able to have that contact with people right now, whilst everything is currently in mass
Going to
hysterics and
heck.
quarantine. Everything's just going to hell right now. Being able to have that contact and have something where you can find you enjoy and you can hang out with people, that does wonders. Like, genuinely does wonders for people. Take it from me, like, it helps a lot to be able to have something to look forward to and something that you can have fun doing.
Oh.
I dip my foot at both sides of the pool.
Honestly,
I treat sort of D&D time as sort of a mixed bag of emotions. On one hand, it's great. I like it. On the other hand, you guys come in on the sessions like, all right, we're gonna have a good time. I come into the session having done like 40 hours of homework. I'm working a part-time job doing D&D here. Like, honestly, it's crazy.
It really is. As someone
Like,
who does
hey, Vasily, when are you gonna finish this 2,000 word roll chart? And I was like,
rule chart, the
next
crit
time.
table, the fucking crit table.
you know, and next
to be
time never
fair.
comes.
to be fair, you promised us that
It's
singing.
I
it's
promised
a
you many
group
things.
effort, and we can't force these things. And that's also a note to take. Do not put more pressure on your DM than is necessary. They already have a lot to work on and
Trevor.
a lot to think about. Don't
Trevor,
make it hell
I
for
don't-
them.
you.
We're all here to have
Okay.
fun.
Don't
Like,
throw shade.
Okay.
You're all guilty. You're all
we're
guilty.
all guilty, but
None
like,
of you are free from
you
sin.
know we
to
appreciate
be
you.
fair, I'm not a DM,
Yeah.
so like, how hard can it be? So-
That's why everyone
a lot
here
harder than
is
you
insisting
expect.
You try DMing. You know, there's always the sort
Yeah.
of frequent things. New players get pissed off when DMs ask players questions occasionally, sometimes multiple times throughout sort of a single session. You know, questions that in theory the DM should have memorized. But like, you know, I'm not just keeping track of your character. I have to keep track of the character, everyone else's character, and the world that they walk in, which is like a
Yeah.
million different things, a million different characters, 40
Are
different
you-
roll charts that I made and I still don't use. You know,
I'm questioning. Are you?
Oh,
Are you?
some
And
of
that's not
it's
to
because
mention-
of me, and I am very sorry for
that's
that.
That's not to mention also the like hundreds or thousands or maybe dozens, depending on how well I feel that day, or maybe like ones of
Are you?
like ideas that I think that I'll put down on paper that I might be able to use, like magical artifacts. I brainstorm those. I've almost never ripped off of anything in terms of artifact. No, I'm really proud that most of them are original.
They are original.
Are you? Are you more?
Conceptually, they may be inspired by,
Inspired
as
by,
far
but
as,
it's
like,
not a
what they are on
blatant
paper. Those tend to be original.
Yeah.
Would you be more? I don't know. What's your like in terms of? Because I know you get asked questions a lot, but like, are questions like "What if I do this?" a lot more easier to answer than "How does this thing work?" or "How does this work?" or whatever.
You can't really ask a "What if I do this?" question to a DM without necessarily
Doing it.
without doing it. Because if a DM tells you what's gonna happen, what's the point of doing it? You
Yeah.
basically turn D&D from a fun role-playing, take chances experience into a boring game
saying-
of stalemate chess.
I'm not saying you have to
true.
answer it directly, but you could point out that there's this watching you already that you know about. Like, I mean, restating
Oh, so
information. and
I
whatnot.
suppose.
I
In
think
theory,
a point to make.
I don't
Listen.
expect you to like
Oh,
it's like this is what will happen. Don't do it. It's like that
I-
sort of
I
yeah,
think-
that ruins it.
I think
Obviously.
it's easier to sort of answer questions based on factual evidence that I'd have in front of me. If you ask
Yes.
me like, what is this, and I have the thing in front of me, I'll often read it directly off because
yeah,
chances
I
are
think
you
with
probably
also
already
vague
asked me that, which means I
questions-
probably have it written down.
Right.
With vague
okay.
questions, I guess a good way to kind of
You know, here's an
subtly
interesting
answer
way
it
to put it.
is like
I will answer vague
action
questions
and
with
cause.
vague answers.
exactly
Yeah, you
like
just answer
what
the
happens
case.
if I do this? Well, see, a couple of things could happen. This. It's up to you to make it. Like, you make that choice happen, but
You press
I'm
that button.
I'm simply just
It'll kill
going
you.
to follow along with what
Yeah,
you
what would
do,
happen
and
if
you're
I
gonna
press
have
that
to pay the
button?
consequences. Like, what if I press a button?
No.
Well, I mean, you fucking die. I'm pressing
You
the
press
button.
that on the button.
You
Press on the
fucking
button.
die.
You know, roll credits.
Yeah.
That's always gonna be a fucking meme amongst us.
Yeah,
now,
it's just not
calling it.
gonna. It's not gonna go away. I'm stuck here with you guys just
Should have given it a
jamming.
false
mean-
answer. Should have been like, oh, money will come out. Oh, we don't need money. We're fine. Press the button, it kills you. What? Just press the button.
Yeah.
Uh,
You know, there's also
Reverse psychology.
As I was saying, there's also the thing about magical artifacts. We have a variety of opinions on magical artifacts. Some people, when presented with an artifact, will ignore it, think it's dangerous, and move on. I'm looking at someone in particular that you guys can't
Trevor!
see because it's being recorded, and you can't see where I'm looking directly. Some of you, on the other hand, will actually take some time to inspect this item, look at it, and then potentially get something useful from it. Some
both sound like
people,
Trevor.
on the other hand, there's a third category. They see a ring, monkey brain, you know, the gears stop interlocking with each other, the bananas start clanging,
Fuck you,
you
first
revert back to the
off.
Stone Age, you bash rocks, there's sparks coming out, you see shiny, and you think, let's put on this potentially lethal item. Let's wear it, because me
Fuck
looks
you.
very shiny.
Fuck
Alex thinks he's
you.
number 2, but he's number 3.
Those are the
I'm
three types of
both.
people I found.
I'm fucking both.
You got enough monkey brain when putting on item to share with all of us.
Oh god. No, I'm the fine line between, but I'm definitely pretty fucking stupid.
I mean,
like,
I don't know, I
let's
like
put
how
on the ring
you're
that's
basic-
magical.
You're
Oh
not
fuck,
just
it's
on the fine
stuck.
line. You're not just on the fine line. You're on the line, drunk out of your ass, and you're
Just
constantly
like-
going from side to side.
Yep. Meanwhile, Trevor refuses to even look at a fucking artifact half the time when it's presented to him. It's just,
Don't worry,
mean,
he's
Trevor,
just in character.
Trevor just got his nails did, and he doesn't want to touch anything for fear of ruining his nail job.
remember
hasn't
that
died
major
once?
artifact ring or whatever dropped in the middle of the wasteland? Was like apparently really fucking good or something? That's all you told us?
I
And the
don't
man
care about it.
left it behind!
It's like,
Didn't even bother
no,
looking
no,
at
no,
it.
You guys don't understand also the sort of the
Like-
importance of this. If I present it to you guys and you guys ignore it,
We're
I
never
still
gonna see it
strike off
again.
my list. You're just never gonna see it again. It could be amazing. It could be
Really?
genuinely amazing. I strike it off my list. You guys
See,
never
I wonder
see it
if the
again.
ring's still
Except
fucking
in-
somewhere out there. No.
Except in very special cases where the effect I've spent too much time making it than I bothered to admit, and I want to see it in the game. I will often either sort of
Reintroduce
recast
it.
the item, or I will transfer the item's effects to a different thing. Like maybe it was one say ring, now it could be an amulet. If it was an amulet, maybe I could turn it into a helmet.
we come across I find we come across so many artifacts.
Minor,
Like-
not so much major.
I would like to know its effects beforehand than actually
Well,
putting on.
isn't
I know.
that-
Well,
No,
that's
no,
not the
no, 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 but
fucking
like,
fun part
like-
of it. The mystery is in not knowing what you get up until you get it.
Yeah, and
then making the most
also
out of it.
One of the rules I have on my campaign, I have basically a total of 3 rules. Orcs can't have intelligence-based abilities.
it's a bit
Dwarves
waste.
can't be magicians,
What?
Fair. Dwarves
Yes.
aren't
That makes
exactly
sense.
magical
That makes
creatures,
sense.
anyways.
and
in
it does make
fantasy,
sense.
And it
At
does
least
make
And the
sense.
according to
third one, wizards, spellcasters, and whatnot cannot have identify.
Oh yeah,
Identify?
because
Yes.
yeah, I remember I had identify and it was like, oh, maybe you
And I
might
think I
wanna
told you
switch
to strike it out.
Yeah,
In the event that if I didn't tell you, or maybe you forgot, and I find out, I generally
Yeah, I
just
switched it
swap it out with the spell.
because I was on chaos.
Just
I think
Just
it really
because
makes sense. For
I don't
I
know
think
what
the point of
identify is.
it-
Could someone remind me what identify does?
Identify
It
tells you
identifies an item.
every single detail about a magic item, whether it's
Yeah,
cursed, all the details, everything, and it allows you to attune to it
Oh, that's
You can
useless.
attune to it through a short rest, okay?
through short rest. But essentially,
That's
it
useful.
gives you
That's
literally
Yeah, no,
a
it's
useful.
copy cutout of
And-
everything that item does, all its potential, everything, and just gives it to you.
Yeah.
And based
guess
on the
that-
campaigns that's like focused on like magic,
magical
Mystery,
artifacts.
magic and magic mystery.
It
I don't
ruins-
allow identify.
It ruins
Because
a
the
lot of
this-
fun of it.
You know, the way I kind of see identify as in terms of a spell, it's sort of the items created by the wasteland aren't necessarily of this world.
They're so complex that it's hard to be able to identify it when it's something
they're
not native.
primal. I dare say they're primal.
and they're not native. So
What?
it's impossible I guess, to identify that.
Sort of, these items are beyond identify scope of experience, if you will.
Yeah.
which is fair.
Oh. That brings
It's
me a
not-
whole new perspective then.
Well, it's
There
not
you
something
go.
I do in my campaign, but
No, but
I
then again,
definitely
our campaigns
understand.
have different settings.
yeah,
Yeah.
completely different settings, completely
I'm sure
different.
you probably have a few rules for your campaign, or at the very least, we'll get them in the future.
Oh yeah. There are a couple of things I've been thinking of like restricting in general, but like, it really, I'm kind of bummed out, but like I also understand like perfectly why you've put that restriction down.
Which one?
Like identify.
Yeah, no, and it's something I'm going to be adamant about, even if you guys start sort of arguing about it with
Can we
me.
get
Also-
Would
identify?
it be like a level 9 spell instead?
I just thought.
I was actually considering that. It's on the table. I was considering moving Identify up to like a 8th or 9th
Oh,
level
yeah.
spell.
I guess
So it's
something
it's on
that
the
I
table.
was thinking about.
And no wish cannot be used to replicate Identify.
No. Eh. But I was thinking about something. So even though dwarves aren't technically known to be a magical race as a whole in fantasy, as well as are more associated with metallurgy and the earth and more, I guess, physical and more sort of
Material.
materialistic base race. But I believe, like with the artificer, being able to forge with magic or understanding magic and being able to incorporate that into tech, I feel like that's still possible, but they don't have the innate ability to cast, but they know how to work magic in the forge, I guess, in
So
that
the-
sense.
The Artificer walks this fine line between mage
Yeah.
and non-mage. He's technically an arcane tinkerer of some sort.
Yeah.
Really
And
cool.
the way it's described, I think I don't know about the Eberron book, but when it was still in the prototyping phase, Unearthed Arcana described the Artificer as their spells aren't so much spells as
But
they
it's
are
more works of wonder.
little mechanical contraptions. Like a fireball could be him throwing like a little flask of something. A cure wounds could be something like
Like a healing salve.
a spray gel or something.
Yeah,
Basically, it
or
could be
just
maybe
like-
a bunch of tiny mechanical spiders that sew your wounds back together. I
Maybe
believe
even
that's
just like a
actually-
coagulant formula.
Yeah, just it's but they are spells, if, like for all intents and
For
purposes.
all intensive purposes, but it's not so much like the mystical behind the weave,
It's a more down to earth.
yeah, it's
spellcasting.
more
Mhm.
material. It's more something that you can look at and kind of grasp a sense of. It's enchanted to a sense, but it's still something that can be physically manifested, and it's not something from like the Aether or some sort of elemental power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's fair.
But yeah, I just think as a whole, a lot of the concepts in D&D, like the whole artificer, magic tinkerer kind of deal, and being able to understand all these sort of fantasy concepts is what really makes it why it's so special. And I mean, there's other tabletop games out there that have their own sort of mechanics and every like bit of setting that they have. Like Call of Cthulhu is a really interesting take on like a modern day translation into an RPG, and mixed with Lovecraftian horror and the eldritch abominations and sort of the fear of the unknown. But there's always something that can kind of meet your fancy, or something that you feel you might enjoy, or something you want to make. Like, there's so much stupid stuff you can do. Like, the Galactopus, wild shape druid that's also skilled with firearms, introducing
Ah,
the
yes, the
Galactopus
Galactopus.
that shoots you 8 separate times with a separate handgun.
Good luck
That
reloading.
exists.
Oh yeah,
That
no, it's
Or
a concept purely.
Mr. Barrington, the rogue bear.
Oh yeah.
I love that story. A bear so skilled in deception and disguise.
Oh yeah, that one's a classic.
Oh no.
That story's
I'm gonna read up-
amazing. I love
I'm gonna
that.
read up on some
And-
of these.
It goes to show just how much you can do in this world and how much creative liberty you have. It's so fun to kind of explore the options you're given. That's the greatest part about it. You have so much opportunity to do what you want. You just need a little bit of work to figure out how to make it work. Like, I guess a good example, I think it was Los Taburon or whatever. It was a fighter or barbarian, but the man wanted to literally make a luchador in Dungeons and Dragons, and
Oh yeah,
Los
yeah,
Tiburon, and he literally grappled a dragon and killed it with the
Batista
fall
bombed a
damage.
dragon.
Batista bombed a dragon, and it was a fighter that was focused around a lot of strength, grappler feat, so he's really good at lifting stuff and grappling combat, and
Yeah. Oh, grappling's a nightmare for the DM.
and
Why?
he made this custom leather mask or whatever to
On the
look like
tabletop,
a
it's not as
Mexican
bad in
luchador
Roll20.
mask.
On the tabletop, because you gotta whip out the strength score, the athletics for it, the acrobatics. You gotta roll. You
Grappling's
gotta roll.
a
It's more than-
nightmare.
Okay, yeah. that
And then
makes
all of a
sense.
sudden you have to like whip out like the dusty old like Necronomicon of rule books, like where grappling rules are. It's like, how does grappling work? No one knows. Like, ask the Lord while you're at it. Go back in time, like go down into like your basement's basement, sift through like thousands of volumes of knowledge, and then maybe you'll find something that tells you that yes, grappling after this amount of rounds does this. And it's like, wow.
Fuck.
Well, everyone's gone. And session's ended.
By that time, our world's ended.
Yeah. Alright, I get
crazy,
that.
it's
Alright,
crazy.
that makes sense.
It's a sort of a pet peeve for DMs everywhere, not just me. Although it's not that
Roll20.
bad for me because
Yeah.
click of the button and all that, and
Yeah.
especially because I do tend. Okay, well, it's off sometimes a pain. I don't always enter in the full statistics of a monster that I throw at you guys.
Yeah.
It's like, they wouldn't charm this thing. Why would I need a wisdom saving throw?
Hello, Vassal. I'd like to use my item of instant charm that you gave me about 2.5 years ago that I saved in like the back of my left eardrum when I was going through a prison sequence and I stumbled upon a genie who like baptized me in holy water when he gave it to me. And it's like, okay,
Oh, that happened? Oh, yeah.
that happened. I have no memory of this. It's a big game of honesty as well. And
Yeah, that
Yes.
too.
Yeah, you can definitely. Well, then again, if you're not
Hey.
honest, it eventually comes
Be
out.
careful, guys, that what you say next can and will be used against you.
Well, you got exams,
I've always
so
been
maybe you'll
honest
forget
with
it.
my stuff. If I use it, I use it. If I gain it, I gain it. I don't do anything unless it's been explicitly
course-
said.
All three of you will say that, but there's the possibility that you guys are doing the forbidden ancient old art of
No.
lying.
Hey,
But
I don't
it's
like.
always it always takes.
Every
it
piece
takes
of
away
ammo
from our
counts
fun.
for me. That's why I'm trying
It's-
to ration it.
Yeah, it's fun for like I lie in game, but like I don't lie outside because it takes away from the fun. It just takes.
I also
like,
agree with
and-
that.
Eventually, like they'll figure out that you're lying, right? If it's not
I find
true.
that
That's
people
just-
who aren't as invested into the game tend to lie more often.
Oh yeah. Like you're not invested. You don't.
So you
want that
trust
full-
If
me,
you
right
don't
then?
care, then it's like, why are you even here? What's the point of following the rules? Just do my own thing. Here.
Yeah.
Go play an
Go play
RPG.
something else then if you're
Go
not
play The Witcher or
interested.
something.
Go play The
Basically,
Witcher.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's true.
But yeah, overall I think just the whole sort of concept of D&D and how it came to be and why it's still around is just that sort of wonder of being able to explore
All
a
good.
world outside of your
I
own.
think it's a bit more than that. One of
And
the
just-
oldest methods of media that humanity has ever known is in telling a story. Storytellers have been around for eons. D&D is just a modern take on it.
Yeah.
Back then storytelling would have been physically telling stories, but in here it's, in a sense, it's almost acting out the stories.
Yeah.
And
No
not
one
only-
would have thought up a series of rules on how to tell a story, but back then it was not really a thing. But nowadays, no, you can't do that. That polyhedral cube has to say 20 before you can do that.
You're telling stories
Natural
as D&D
20.
games.
And not only that, these stories like feel and like we plays them out as if they're real, which makes it like Like it creates immersion.
The sense of
But it's-
immersion and
it's the-
wonder.
The story,
Yeah.
it's not even just a story because as you guys change, my
Mhm.
story does too. It's it's an advanced variant of those choose your own adventure books.
I
know,
loved
if
those
you,
things
if,
as a
if you
kid.
guys don't want to, if you guys don't want to sort of talk with this innocent tavern keep, then it is well within your rights. You are well, it's well within your sort of
Your
abstract
ability.
concept of culture to dismember him if you wish.
Well, that's
The
That's
good old
aggressive.
chaotic stupid.
I got a plan for everything, especially since it's happened before. Not the dismembering part, but the chaotic stupid part.
Okay, I'm
Oh.
sorry.
I
But
don't remember. Yeah.
Got
Some
a
of
plan
it-
for it.
believe it or not, was not intended. Okay?
Make excuses all you want. It's not going to change
Fuck
what I
off.
think of you.
It's
Well-
what my character would do.
Depends on the scenario, maybe the guy's got a corrupted
Ugh.
perspective on things,
Maybe some of you guys have corrupted perspectives on things, but
Well, I
it's
mean,
not always
see,
it's not always the NPC's fault. Maybe
alignment's
some of you
alignment's
guys
really
just,
hard to place down
have the int of the
sometimes.
negative values.
yes, like we said,
Real
these
life
horror
negative
stories.
int.
Although that's going to be wisdom probably more than int.
I
it's
mean, I don't
wisdom.
know if we're looking at Disco's case. The fucking button, like, that's pretty fucking stupid.
That was wisdom, not int. That was wisdom. That was definitely a big case of negative wisdom.
Well, one of his flaws, I believe.
What, he was stupid?
No, with gambling or
Oh, the
something.
gambling. There was
Is
no
it
gamble
okay,
there.
Here's the question. Here's the question that I asked him.
All
actually.
right. Do
Is
we
it
have to?
gambling?
Do we have to do? Okay.
We gotta. Is
We
it
gotta.
gambling? Is it gambling if you know what the outcome is gonna be?
Well, I didn't really know what the
It
outcome
said
was.
you were gonna
It
die.
said it would murder you. It was explicitly
Just because it tells
displayed
me doesn't mean
on
I
the
actually
note,
know it.
as well as smeared in blood all over the fucking walls. Like,
I
millions
thought I
of
threw you
dead
guys enough
people
bones.
coating
know,
a new
it's-
paint each
it re-
fucking time the
reminds
button
me
was
of
pressed.
It reminds me of the sort of stereotypical situation. Someone looks at a
Like,
work of art and says, the author painted the sky blue because of his deep distrust towards the establishment. No, I painted the
That's
sky
so
blue because the sky is
fucking
blue.
pretentious.
What is this?
well, I mean, to be fair, I don't think it's actually gambling if there's no reward to it at all.
Yeah.
I
that's
mean,
the
gambling with
thing.
your life, but
Gambling with your life does
Yes.
still mean that there's a potential for a reward. Generally
Well-
speaking, gambling works if you at least know there's a reward.
Yeah.
If you're told specifically, if there was a sign on that button that said you have a 1 out of 100 chance to
Well-
not die and instead gain like riches beyond your wildest dreams, I would have understood if you
That's
guys
a
would have
gamble.
pressed it. Granted, I would still look at you with a very, very evil
minor
scowl,
disdain.
but I would have major
Major disdain, never mind.
But I would have understood it. But it's not gambling if you guys.
Unless you
If
got
there's
that,
no
unless you
reward.
don't die, you get
The
the
reward
riches.
is death.
All
You
of
die.
you.
The end. Have fun. There's your
But at the
gift.
same time,
Then there's the concept of creating or being given a very, very powerful ability to use once. However, you royally bork it up, and then it
works you
kills
up.
200,000 people on the fly.
Well, to be fair, that
'Kay.
this wasn't really direct.
Biggest takeaway: don't trust a wish spell unless you know what you're doing.
Don't tempt
Trevor
the DM
didn't.
either.
And yeah,
Don't tempt the DM. Don't you
It-
dare tempt me. I will
That-
do it. I've tasted blood in the water.
And he wants
I am
more.
more than willing to murder each and every one of you
Yeah.
individually.
That's a lesson for everyone.
I want
Don't
to
tempt the
murder a
DM.
player. You mean a player character? I know what I said.
Just a player.
Yeah, that's a
In my culture,
that's a lesson to learn.
I would be well within my rights to dismember you.
What a quote.
Wow, we've been recording for about an hour, close to
Yeah.
10 minutes now. Goodness.
Yep.
I think maybe we should
It's a
wrap
lot.
it up.
Yeah, I think it might
Yeah.
Sounds fair.
wrap it up.
Alrighty. So, do we want to have like one final topic to get out there, or we just good as is?
If there's anything
You got
else,
anything? Yeah, yeah.
I think we kind of covered most of the stuff that there is
Is
to
it
cover.
broad?
Yeah, I guess so.
You know,
Well,
it's. Oh, okay.
no, go on. Hey, come on now, don't bitch out on me.
No, it really was nothing. You know, if you look at this right here, I'm to mute myself, right?
Come on,
Okay.
say something profound, Logan. Say
No,
something profound.
No, I was gonna say the
Nothing
fact that,
racist
like,
or something
half
that'll
the
get me in
time I
trouble.
pressed-
Please don't.
No, don't worry. Half the time I pressed this button, didn't realize it. And I was gonna talk about a topic, but you guys couldn't hear me.
Oh.
So
Well, okay,
just
well,
got-
I
do you have
still
any
tried to
topics
give
then?
everyone
Let's
equal time to talk and have a
No,
chance.
if you have any topics though, Logan.
I don't. You think I'm smart enough to remember them?
Okay, well, I mean,
Low int. I told you.
Logan.
well,
Trevor, you can't back me up on this.
no, I'm sorry, man. At least the attempt is there. Do I get some brownie points for that?
Give him an inspiration roll.
No, you guys get no mercy from me.
Oh fuck.
Oh,
Alrighty.
yes.
Well, I guess this is one way to wrap it up. So,
Yeah.
I'm Alex.
Yep. Remember,
That's Logan. That's Bass.
don't attempt the
Don't-
DM.
That's
Don't
Trevor.
piss off the DM.
The
Whichever
moral
direction
story
Alex
today
is
and the
at.
takeaway: don't tempt a DM. And thank you very much
Logan
for
is
joining
okay.
us on Dungeons
And
Dragons. Dudes at a table, theoretically at a
At a
table.
laptop.
At a laptop. Thank you very much, and have a great one. Peace. Alrighty, I just wanted to thank you all very much for sticking along with us and watching our podcast. I wish you well. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and have a great one.